I think that if Hillary Clinton were to face a female nominee, there are a whole set of things that she won't be able to talk about. She won't be able to talk about being the first woman president. She won't be able to talk about a war on women without being challenged. She won't be able to play the gender card. And so what she will have to run on is her track record, her accomplishments, her candor and trustworthiness, and her policies.
Ooh, that would be tough. All right, folks, welcome to the Malzberg panel. Joining us on this all-female panel to talk about an all-female presidential race. Of course, I don't think it'll happen, but it's fun to talk about it and speculate. Karin Agness, founder and president of the Network of Enlightened Women, and Carrie Sheffield, contributor, Forbes and Fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I welcome you both. And let's start with you, Karin. And then you wrote a piece, first of all, about what Hillary has in her upper sleeve, so to speak, with regard to women. But first, let's focus on Carly Fiorina. I mean, let's make believe she can be the nominee. What would that be like? What would it add, and what would it take away from, you know, a male nominee on the Republican side from that race?
Well, I'd be excited to have Carly Fiorina talking about the economy in the race and pushing Hillary to talk about economic policy, because we know what she's offering is disastrous for all of Americans, and especially those women who she's trying to win and are important for her to win the race. So I think what Carly will add is a real economic discussion that I think Hillary would, quite frankly, like to avoid.
And yeah, what about it, Carrie?
I completely agree with Karin, because Hillary is not comfortable talking about the economy, because on the one hand she doesn't really seem to understand economics, and on the other side she's being pushed by the Elizabeth Warren wing to be incredibly leftist. So Carly has such a natural understanding of how economics works, you know, being a Fortune Power CEO. So I think she could bring a lot to the race. I mean, I do think, Steve, though, that you're right, that she probably has a hard time. It's going to be an uphill battle for her to get the nomination, just because
with no political experience.
Yeah, she's not held elected office, you know, and I heard her speak last week at the TechCrunch conference, and she said, you know, people come up to me and they like that I'm not a politician. Well, the reality is she ran for office and she lost. So she wanted to be a politician and she lost. So that's you know, it's a black mark against her in terms of her electability.
Yeah. And Karin, they you know, Chris Wallace was the first one to interview Carly Fiorina and do what I believe was Romney her. I think he even said she was going to be Romneyed. and yesterday she was Romneyed by Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, where, oh, you know, you fired 30,000 people, blah, 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 the stock went down, blah, 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 why'd they fire you? I mean, you know, that's what she's going to run into.
Well, but here's the thing. We have a double standard when it comes to the way the press treats Carly versus Hillary. Newsweek ran a big story, a headline on Carly that began with something like, Carly lost her first race, can we expect her to win again? Do we see headlines like that on Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
No. So I think one of the great value adds of having Carly in the race is that she's going to shine a light on that double standard.
All right, and Carrie, you know as much about the double standard in the media as anybody. And of course, if you're a Republican woman, you're not really a woman. If you're a Republican, you know, and black, you're not really a black. And if you're Hispanic, you're not really Hispanic. They'll tear you down.
Right, no, I saw this feminist talk show host said that she thought any pro-life woman should have her ovaries ripped out and eaten. You know, that's the sort of thing that she's going to be facing. It's just this identity politics, and whether it's race or gender or class, this is the classic leftist thinking that identity is how we need to drive wedges within society instead of creating a cohesive and unified country, because that's what we are. We need a common civil language.
All right, Karin, you wrote a piece, No Ceilings is the Clinton 2016 Playbook. How is she going to argue for equal pay for women on this fictional, nonsensical 70% nonsense, which even the White House, when they're guilty of it, said it had mitigating circumstances, when she, in her Senate career and now at the Clinton Foundation, is just as guilty, if anybody's really guilty, as anybody else?
Yeah, here's the problem. You mentioned this piece I wrote. We saw the war on women has played a big role in the past couple election cycles, and it didn't quite work in the last one. So I think the left is trying to figure out, how do we rebrand this victim mentality that we can then sell to women to get them to vote for us? And I think what we're going to see is Hillary Clinton talk about it in terms of no ceilings. Remember when she withdrew from the race last time in the primary, she gave that famous speech about the 18 million cracks in the glass ceiling.
Yep.
I think she's going to pick up on that theme, and that's where we're going to see her use this idea of ceilings, and we need more government policy to try to help women when actually those policies are going to hurt the people they're trying to help.
And Carrie, again, as you well know, and you've written articles about this, women have been hurt very much under the Obama economic policies. There's more women not in the workforce now. Their workforce participation rate is at almost an all-time low, over 56 million women not in the workforce. So Hillary has to separate herself. She just can't run on us breaking the ceiling, supporting the policies that have kept women out and down.
You're absolutely right. And it's the same with the Affordable Care Act. Obamacare is shoving women from full-time employment to part-time employment. So if we want to talk about a real war on women, I think what it is it's a war on the American dream. The Democrats are waging a war on the American dream. And so they're trying to spin it and say this is a war on women, but in actuality it's a war on opportunity. It's a war on economics that make America exceptional. They want us to be more like Europe. They want to have European-style social policies about women, about daycare. You know, these are great things in theory, but they come with a cost. And so the question is whether we want to be more European in our identity or more American. And I think the Republican is going to be able to speak a much more clarion call for an American exceptionalism.
Karen, we got 30 seconds, so 10 seconds each. Is she going to get the women's vote in 2016 if she's the nominee?
You got to break it up between the married and the single women. I think there's a very good chance she will win single women, but there's a lot of smart people on the right trying to figure out how to stop that.
And Carrie?
I agree. There's also national security moms who are very interested about what's happening in the Middle East, and they don't trust what the Democrats have done so far.
All right, very interesting panel. And I'm living the American dream with two beautiful women sitting next to me. And thank you both very much. We'll speak to you both soon. Fran Tarkington is next. Don't go away.